Hey guys, it's Orcs here, and today we're back with another video all about the best champions for every role on the current patch. A quick question for you guys before we get started. Which champion is your favourite champion to play in Preseason so far, and why? Mine's gotta be Echo. Arcane really made me revisit this champion, and I'm having tons of success and fun with him in the jungle so far. Plus, no one really seems to ban him these days, so it's a win-win. Let's kick it all off with the top lane, and before we continue, yes, Camille is still strong despite getting nerfed, but we feel like we've covered her enough in recent videos so she won't be on this list today. The first choice here is Shen. Shen has been super strong for a long time, and especially so since the start of Preseason 2022. Now don't get me wrong here, there are a ton of other tanks who are having fun at the moment as well, like Dr. Mundo and Malphite, but Shen just has that influential ultimate and just edges him a step above the rest, especially with the teleport nerfs coming to the game soon. Shen can deal a boatload of damage by building as a tank, and honestly it's surprising how hard it actually is to duel this champion when he gets ahead, despite the fact he doesn't even have an ultimate to help him out with those duels. Shen's ability to get around the map and not only save his teammates but join them and turn fights has always made him such a prolific pick in the top lane, but when you pair that with his current strengths and his itemization, he's an absolute monster. Next up is Kayle, and she's been having a great time in the top lane at the moment. Don't get me wrong, her laning in early game is still pretty brutal, but aside from those FF15 stomps, generally in preseason games have a tendency to last longer due to objective bounties and bundles of golden experience coming in more frequently than previously. This basically means that scaling champions are infinitely more viable, and Kayle is one of the best scaling champions in the entire game. Despite being nerfed, Lethal Temple also helped Kayle develop into the machine gunning monster that she's always wanted to be, so definitely consider this in those favourable matchups. Pressy attack is also still a fine choice, though if you prefer that playstyle. Kayle has such flexible itemization on top of that, but honestly the strongest feels like the Riftmaker Nash's Tooth setup, which hasn't been touched this preseason and allows it to scale incredibly well and deal a huge amount of damage. If you enjoy playing ticking time bomb champions, definitely give Kayle a go. Jax is the third and final top lane on this list, mainly due to Lethal Tempo being so strong despite it receiving a nerf this patch. There are other champions like Yone, Yasuo, Aurelia, Sett and Tryndamere who are all performing exceptionally well with this rune as well, but Jax is definitely in our opinion the top of the bunch due to the fact that he has a lot less unfavourable matchups, and he's a bit less one-dimensional and a bit more all-rounded. Jax is definitely a ticking time bomb, and once he's got his core item set up, he becomes insanely hard to deal with, especially in duels and extended fights. Jax is also still thriving off the strength of his build path too. Divine Sundra is another untouched item that's been performing super well for a while now, and then Blade of the Rune King, Sterex, Death Stance and Withstand are all super strong. Jax is unbelievably hard to deal with once he gets the ball rolling and can absolutely 1v9 if he spikes earlier. Onto the jungle, and first we're going to have to talk about Talon. Predator and Lethal Tempo have been nerfed and Conqueror has been buffed, meaning Talon does become an edge stronger, due to those other rune abusers falling off the face of the earth. Talon was still doing exceptionally well in the last few patches, but this tiny little shift will see him come out through the ranks into that top tier ganking jungler. Now since Predator got nerfed and we're seeing it a lot less, there isn't many junglers that can rival Talon's map mobility and ability to gank basically the entirety of Summoner's Rift whenever he wants. Nunu is probably one of the only picks to counter him at the moment to rival his strengths, or someone like a Nocturne with a global presence allowing you to counter gank. Talon is definitely going to be around for a long time, and despite Riot taking his clear speeds down a fraction, he's still able to carry your games pretty effectively. The next jungle pick we've got is Trundle. Now if you haven't played him yet, you simply need to. The damage this guy does at the moment is absolutely bonkers. Pick up an early Tiamat and then you can go for a Divine Sundra or a Trinity Force and absolutely chomp your enemies if you get close enough. Trundle's issues have always been based around his poor mobility and his enemy's ability to kite him out, but if you pick him into a team comp with allied champions who have CC or movement speed boost, he's immensely more powerful. Despite the Rift Scroll basically becoming irrelevant, meaning we see those early skirmishes less frequently, Trundle is still one of the best early game duelists as his Q just absolutely slaps, and this alone makes him deserve a spot on the list. If you overcommit to any fight against Trundle, you will instantly be punished for it. His pillar can shut down any attempt at getting away, and without mobility cooldowns, he will eat you for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Third and final pick in the jungle for this patch is Graves. When will this champion ever go away? Despite being nerfed and the meta shifting so heavily, this guy is still having a lot of fun being so strong throughout most of Season 11. Graves just has so many different build options that if one path gets changed or nerfed, he can just go down a different route and continue to dominate with that instead. Currently, Immortal Shield Bow is just super fun to play with on Graves. You spike so hard once it's completed, and especially when paired with Lord Dominic's Regards, you can puncture any type of target with ease. Other strong items like Ghostblade and the Collector continue to benefit Graves too, and when he gets ahead, this champion just seems to deal so much damage with very low counterplay, especially if he has the ability to get close enough. Graves is an amazing pick into low range melee compositions, especially if they're primarily physical damage threats, as with his inbuilt armor stacking passive and ability to delete close range carries with his shotgun. Onto the mid lane and last patches, mages like Victor, Lux and LeBlanc are all still doing very well. There are definitely some new faces coming in and hitting the Rift hard with a new itemization shift. The first, and in my opinion the best champion in the game at the moment, is Kassadin. Kassadin benefits hugely from the recent changes and has an incredibly solid, cheap and effective core item build. Crown of the Shattered Queen and Archangel Staff only have a combined cost of 5,400 gold now, which is insane for the amount of utility, damage and survivability these items bring. Once you've got those and some upgraded shoes, you're basically good to go, and anything else after that will just be an added bonus. Once your Archangel is upgraded, you'll feel insanely strong as it heals you when you spend mana, which is nuts when combined with Kassadin's Riftwalk. As we mentioned earlier, aside from those games where you FF and go next, most matches seem to always get a Dragon Soul, and the frequency of games lasting longer than half an hour is far more often, meaning scaling champions like Kassadin are having a whale of a time. Now we all know what happens when Kassadin reaches level 16, so there's not much more to be said at all aside from good freaking luck if you're playing a squishy carry against him. We'll see mages be kings and queens for the majority of this patch, and Kassadin is definitely on top right now. Next up is actually going to be Corki. This champion has been crazily strong for quite some time now, and his Valkyrie when used with his passive can honestly win a game by itself. The damage it does is absolutely insane, so I just had to mention this part of the kit before even speaking about the rest of his strengths. Corki is yet another scaling champion, and his late game damage is genuinely insane. His Qs, autos and rockets deal a monstrous amount of burst, and he can easily delete teams on his own, especially when aided with some mixed penetration and the armor shred from his E. We recently covered a new hybrid Corki build in a video too, which is absolutely nuts. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you go and take a look before it gets nerfed into the ground. Corki is another champion that does need to get through that lane phase without too many issues, but it's far easier and less punishing than, let's say, Kassadin or Kayle, as he has the range and mobility to keep himself safe enough. Combine Corki's late game power with his ability to solo win objectives and fights for his team around his passive, and you got an absolute demon of a champion when played by someone who really knows how to abuse him. The third and final mid lane pick of the patch is going to be Vex. Since Vex came around, she's been having a lot of fun in the Rift, but right now it feels like she has really settled into the game. Horizon focus in general is pretty underrated, and when paired with Vex's ultimate means you could always guarantee that damage amplification when you dive into teams, giving you more chance of bursting them out and getting that reset. Vex's ability to pentakill teams with her ultimate is just simply insane and super fun to play with, but honestly it's an AoE burst in CC that really has the potential to solo carry fights with ease. Now Vex does have some trouble with getting out range, and that can be a problem in the meta with so many mages, but if you got the right matchup, this champion can seriously 1v9. If you enjoy playing a champion that everyone has to respect, Vex is definitely up there with the big guns. It's time to talk about AD carries, and let's get the most obvious one out of the way first. Vayne is simply destroying the Summoner's Rift right now. She's been super strong for most of preseason, and she still hasn't received any changes, so she's still doing exactly the same stuff. Vayne's power spike when she gets a shield bow, boots, and either Wit's End or Rage Blade is honestly one of the biggest spikes in the entire game. She can melt any type of target, including the beefiest of tanks with only a few items, and due to shield bow being so strong, she's also hard to take down. Vayne's win rate has been insane for quite a while now, and if you're an AD carry main and not playing this champion, you definitely need to ask yourself why. Vayne's weakness has always been defined in the early game, where her laning was a bit of a struggle, but right now it's not even really an issue. There's lots of enchanters and peeling supports floating around too, which give Vayne even more of an advantage. If you're in that much of a difficult lane, which is pretty rare, all you've got to do is farm for an item or two, and then join the game and dominate there instead. If Vayne doesn't get nerfed, she'll continue to stay as one of the best AD carries and best champions in the game. Next up is Jhin, and he's been played a ridiculous amount at the moment. It's probably a combination of being so fun and so strong that has got players spamming him like mad right now. Jhin's actually a pretty safe pick all around really. He's got a good spot in the game at the moment, he's pretty good with most supports and against most matchups too. Jhin's early game strengths allow him to lane and farm with not much trouble, and if left unchecked late game, he will deal some serious damage due to his scaling and execute potential. You have a few different options when it comes to runes really. Fleet Footwear can help you out with your laning alongside things like Mana Flow Band, or you can go for Dark Harvest if you want to give yourself more burst throughout the game. Ingenious Hunter is also super fun too, allowing you to Gale Force more often, and we all know how strong that item is on Jhin. As long as you pick up Lord Dominic's regards early enough, you shouldn't have too much trouble taking out those tanks, and due to your ultimate and decent ranged abilities, you should be able to deal plenty of damage from afar without getting picked off by those pesky mages, especially if you go for a rapid fire cannon. The third and final AD to mention today is Jinx. Jinx has been absolutely popping off since Lethal Tempo got changed, and it basically just allows her to actually be able to fight in the early game where she always struggled before. Once Jinx grabs her mythic item, she deals crazy damage, and the attack speed and range that Lethal Tempo grants her makes her feel so strong with only a few items. Jinx's insane rage and AoE damage potential is nuts, and if she picks up an early reset in a fight, she becomes so fast and so hard to actually get a hold of. Now don't get me wrong, she's still abusable in the early game, and if you land the right CC she gets destroyed, but if you pair her with the peeling support who can grant that peel that she needs to pop off, she's an absolute monster in this patch. We did also want to mention quickly how good Caitlyn feels too. Before we move on, she got some love this patch and feels how she should again after the disaster that followed her visual update. Late game Caitlyn's range, burst and overall consistency just had to be spoken about, and she only just missed out on those top spots. Moving on to the support champions now, and in the first spot we're going to talk about Sona. Soraka is performing very well, but Sona just edged in there due to the strength and potential of her ultimate. These champions sustain, healing and ability to control and win lane, put them in a very tidy spot right now. As you've mentioned, hypercarries and scaling champions are thriving and extended fights are occurring often. So if you put Sona into that situation, she just excels at keeping them alive and keeping people off your carries. In lane with Sona, she pretty much guarantees a smooth transition unless you manage to int as against an aggressive support, and if left unchecked in the mid to late game, she'll simply win fights on her own. Constant healing, poke and disengage makes her incredibly effective and very hard to play against. The next support is going to be Blitzcrank. Now with all the hypercarries and squishy supports, Blitzcrank is just an absolute beast right now. Blitzcrank has always been strong in the right draft due to his pick potential and his ability to win games with just one ability, but now those draft scenarios are happening more often, which allows him to thrive in the majority of games. Blitzcrank has a ton of versatility in his build paths too. You can go Locket for the AoE shield, Shrelia's for some AoE movement speed, or even Evan Shroud for some improved burst for your teammates. This flexibility allows him to mold his build around the game state and almost always have a viable option depending on the draft. Due to the fact that people are picking such scaling bot laners that just want to farm, it allows Blitzcrank to also roam and contribute to the rest of the map easier. Dragons and those OP Dragon Souls are also highly important and contested now, and playing with a champion that can help get those with one good hook is pretty damn strong. The last support and the last champion in this video is going to be Lulu, and I'm sure you already know why. Lulu has always been one of the strongest, if not the best, peeling support in the game, and when paired with those OP hypercarry, she's simply outstanding. Kog'Maw is also in a great spot this patch, and the only reason we didn't mention him is because of his dependence on Lulu. Lulu Kog or any other scaling hypercarry is an absolute disaster to play against, as no matter how hard you try and take out that carry, Lulu will prevent you from doing so. Lulu's Polymorph and Ultimate are two of the best peeling abilities in the game, and the fact you can buff and improve her AD carry's damage at the same time make it just so strong in the meta. Lulu does struggle in lanes where she gets out sustained heavily though, so do be cautious with all the Sona and Soraka players floating around, but aside from that she does absolutely fine into most of the lanes. Engaging support wants to go in, polymorph and laugh in their faces. And well, that brings us to the end of the best champions for every role in patch 11.24. I hope you've been having fun in this preseason. If you have any other picks that you think have been big standouts, feel free to let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video and want to see more content. I'll see you soon.